Good evening, guys. You're very welcome to the Leinster Laighn, Leinster monthly roundup show in association with the ThreeBOD group. We've been off air for a while, so it's great to be back. And joining me tonight to co-host the show is Nathan Johns. We've so much to cover tonight. We're looking back on the season to date. We're looking ahead to some big European matches ahead. And of course, we're joined by our regular historian, Gerald Williamson, and Gerry Sweeney, who'll be talking about Blue Dragons Inclusive Rugby Team. First of all, and most importantly, the game was put in perspective. The game, we know, was put in perspective this week with the news that a young man from Wales by the name of Ivan Phillips suffered a very serious motor injury. Do you want to tell us a bit about that, Nathan?
Yeah, it was just shocking news. First of all, good evening, Conor. Good to see you again. But I guess, start off with just, giving our best wishes to Ivan Phillips, and after his auto accident, and that's got him in a bad way. So we wish him the best, and we know that there's a Just Giving page that's going around. We've got a link there on our that's visible there, and I'm sure it'll go out on our various social media channels as well. So it's just important to flag that before we go on. So on behalf of all of us here at the Leinster Laighn and ThreeBOD Rugby Group, just wishing him well and a speedy recovery, and hopefully we see him out on the pitch again in the not too distant future. And like you said, and there is a Just Giving page, so if you are willing and able, that would be fantastic. But in the meantime, we should probably move on, and we should also mention that we do have a very big name guest that Big Joe Shep managed to secure for us. So stay tuned to hear from a bit of a legend later on in the show. But I guess we're going to start with just recapping. Like you said, it's been a while since we've been on, so we should probably start with recapping where Leinster and of course Ireland are as well, Conor. So how have you enjoyed the first couple of months of the new season?
It's been incredible, and with all the announcements, we've won another huge one as well with news of a competition tonight. We have 2 tickets for Leinster versus Bath at the RDS this Saturday to give away. All you have to do is enter this competition by following the instructions going across the screen. You go to the we'll go to the ThreeBOD Rugby page, like and follow the page, come back here and enter your answer, which is basically you have to, and the cumulative points from Leinster's 4 final victories amounted to how many? And enter your answer in the comment section here, and that's all you have to do, following the instructions across the screen. It's quite simple, and you could win 2 tickets for this Saturday's match at the RDS.
Yeah, very simple. Like and follow our page, L and F in the comment section, plus your answer, the 4 finals, the cumulative points that Leinster scored. And anyone who might have noticed that Joe potentially gave the answer away there on the sidebar as it went on the screen. So we'll see how many of his were actually paying attention there. But yeah, my apologies, forgot to mention the competition. And we'll announce the winner at midday tomorrow. So we'll give people who are catching up on the show later this evening and tomorrow morning, we'll give them a chance to win as well. So now that we've finally got out of the way, and after I forgot that, should we talk about Leinster? I mean, 1 defeat so far, but apart from that, it's been business as usual in the new United Rugby Championship.
Absolutely, yeah. Took off where we left off last season. Opening win, comprehensive win over the Bulls. Bit of a stutter against the Dragons. If you remember, we struggled to get past, and everything seemed to be going fine until the international break. And we'll come back to that in a second, I guess. But then there was the Ulster match when we came back, and that was their first loss of the season.
Followed up by a pretty good response against Connacht, I have to say. I mean, the first 10 minutes were worrying when Carty kicked Hansen over in the corner, but I think they responded very well, which is something you like to see. I think one thing that should be flagged, you made a very good point there, that the international break kind of scuppered some rhythm, and that's something that Leinster are definitely going to suffer from this year more than other teams, is that we've really utilised international windows in the past to give the likes, Scott Penny's, Max Deegan's, Ross Maloney's, these guys a lot of game time. So all of a sudden, when these guys were thrown in against what was almost a first choice Ulster side, they hadn't had a game in nearly a month. So without that game time now for the non-internationals during the international window, it's a really interesting one. And I know we're going to talk about the AIL later, but it's worth pointing out that these guys weren't playing AIL rugby in the meantime. So it's an interesting one, the one to keep an eye on for how the new format affects Leinster.
Yeah, for sure. As you said, in previous seasons, we had matches during these windows, and with Leinster having a massive squad of over 50 players, we need to give game time, and we need regular game time. I know a lot of the academy and some sub-academy guys are out playing AIL regularly, but we were senior players and sitting idle for 4 or 5 weeks at a time isn't going to work. I think it's Leo alluded to that after the Ulster match. It was an issue, and if players didn't perform, they mightn't see more game time for a while. I think it was, going back to the Ulster match and the loss. I think it was a bit more than rustiness, though. I think my theory anyway is you have an slightly underpowered front five there with not much speed coming out half from Byrne. You're going to struggle against any opposition. Ross is great, like a fantastic game manager and kicker, but when we're not getting that momentum, that bit of impetus from the pack, I think he struggles.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, that was the one thing that was noticeable from the Connacht game. I mean, we're going to talk about players that impressed us, but we might as well talk about those front five lads now, which are the difference in those two games, the Ulster win and the Connacht win. Because yes. My theory was, right, Tadhg was playing against Ulster, bar that there was no Porter, no Kelleher. I don't think Sheehan didn't start. So you look at that and you go, well, that type 5 lost to Ulster, but will an Ulster pack be able to deal with Porter, Kelleher, Furlong, and then Healy, Sheehan, Alatoa for 80 minutes? And that's the one saving grace for me as a Leinster fan, is that is as best of 6 front row forward out there at the minute, I think, in terms of power and in terms of ability on the ball. I mean, look at Porter. Porter got a 40-minute cameo against Connacht, and he was like a man possessed. I don't think I've ever seen someone tear around the park in the way he did, and he did exactly the same for Ireland, all autumn nations as well. There's only one Tadhg Furlong, dead on. I mean, a man who signed a new contract, by the way, and look, the RFU doesn't tell us how much money these guys make, but he must be, I'd say there's only one man who's making more money than him in Irish rugby now. I think his name's Johnny Sexton.
Johnny Sexton, yeah.
He's a very rich man after that new deal. It's an interesting one, actually, because he bet on himself by signing just a new 1-year deal, didn't he? He said, right, well, I'm going to play out of my skin for a year, to the point where you're going to have to pay me exactly what I want. And it only took it until, November for them to write the check. So I have any feeling that the RFU just said to his agent, write whatever number you want on that check.
Absolutely. It was a very smart move in hindsight, but it was also a risk, of course, because if he suffered another long-term injury in that period, he wouldn't be looking at a big contract. But no, whatever Tadhg is getting, he fully deserves. And I was genuinely concerned that he'd get an offer from France that he simply couldn't say no to, of astronomical money. I could actually see someone making him one of the best paid players in the world. He's 28, 29-year-old prop at the absolute peak, best in the world in his position. Going into a league where they value their props very highly, and that physicality and grunt up front. And so I was concerned that one of the bigger French clubs were going to come and make a move for him. So I actually celebrated the Tadhg Furlongs.
What did you do?
So I did the Tadhg, shaking the fist and a little dance.
Get into a scrum and give it a big fist bump. Someone else was impressed with Ireland, probably more so with Leinster, but he picked it up in that Connacht game, was definitely Mr. Kellen Doris. Ridiculous player. I think the moment of the autumn nations for me was when he takes a hard inside line 5 meters out, takes an absolute mauling from 2 Argentinians, including Julio Montoya, their hooker and captain, and still manages to score. I think I've never seen a man absorb a hit like that, and just out of nowhere we seem to have. I mean, look, he showed signs of it for Leinster in the past few years, but now all of a sudden for Ireland, he's one of the most dynamic and powerful back row forwards out there all of a sudden, and brilliant on the ball. I mean, it's just, and of course, you know, the try when he ran over Cody Taylor, granted a weak tackle effort, but look, it's something that we thought he had in him, but I don't know if anyone thought it was that good.
Yeah, but that's the fascinating thing about him. Like we knew he had the dynamism and the footballing skills, but I don't think anyone really believed we were looking at another Stephen Ferris in terms of physicality and ball carrying. Maybe not quite at the level of Ferris because he was once in a generation, but the combination,
not powerful,
not quite as powerful, but
better ball in hand, I would think.
Yeah. That's probably fair. But some of his barnstorming runs in the Autumn Internationals really made a lot of people sit up and take notice. And that was the great thing about the Autumn Internationals, is seeing guys like Doris do things that none of us thought we had him in. He had in him. The likes of Doris and Porter's conversion to loosehead, it was a spectacular success. I think it was.
The one thing I would say on that is that if you can remember, David Topping telling us Tadhg took a risk, but it's an athlete mentality. Athletes are always going to bet on themselves, aren't they? They're never going to take the easy option. They're going to back themselves to take those risks. But the one thing I will say is, you mentioned Porter there and Doris. The switch from Porter to loosehead, the emergence of Doris and the emergence of Kelleher, and all of a sudden we've gone from worrying about being undersized against teams like England to all of a sudden, I think it has to be said, we have one of the most powerful packs out there. I mean, the Springboks, nobody's really going to compete with them, but I think it has to be said now, with that power that the likes of Kelleher brought in, people are always going to question the line-out throwing, but you can't question his power, Doris's form, Porter's switch, and especially with someone like Henderson, who's always been an absolute monster in the end. And all of a sudden, we've gone in the space of 12 months from having an incredibly powerful pack, I think, and that's something that really excites me. The one other person we do need to talk about, though, and I know you've a lot to say about him, and I don't necessarily want to go into the out-half succession plan discussion because we've done that 1,000 times and we'll do it 1,000 times again, but just Harry Byrne is played 3 weeks in a row now off the bench against Argentina. You got bench run against Ulster, didn't he? And he started against Connacht. Where are you on his current situation?
I still think he's the future Ireland out-half. I think he's on ability. He's on a different level to think. He just needs regular game time. I think he shipped to quite a bit of criticism after his cameo against Ulster when he was coming on and he kicked two balls out in the full, and he overran a pass, and he did a couple of errors, and he got a lot of criticism. You see, Harry hasn't played a huge amount of professional games. Remember, he's only played 20 odd, and a lot of them were substitute appearances. I think without, and he had a highly injury interrupted season last year, so he should be a bit more further down in his development. So it's just a matter of getting him game time, and he'll get there.
Yeah, and I think there's two things about Harry. One of them is that, first of all, you'd love to see someone bounce back from a poor performance 1 week to a very good one the next week, especially a young lad, especially at 10. And then the other thing was, I don't know how much of the Connacht game you remember, but one thing that really stood out to me was his kicking out of hand. In that second half, he kind of had a bit of a kicking chess battle with Jack Carty a lot, and it seemed like every time he kicked out of hand, he was happy to go down the middle and find space in the Connacht 22, and that's not something you see a lot of these days. Teams seem to be afraid of kicking into the middle of the park and counter-attack, but if you find space and grass, which Harry did virtually every time, so that's something that's a really good sign as well. One of those more traditional out-half skills that maybe with everyone looking to throw the ball around and play vast running rugby and put 50 points in Argentina, maybe people forget a little bit about, and that's good, something that will translate really well to the international game, because we know he has the skill set, but there's just some really nice bits of game management that looked really good. for me. I mean, we got a couple of questions here. I think Nigel's made a really good point saying about Leinster's player retention, saying that the other provinces probably have more of an issue with player retention. I mean, the one thing I would say was that even if we didn't retain Tadhg, I suspect there would have been a rehashing of the Sexton rule for him. I think he's probably the one player who, if he did go right now, I suspect we'd still pick him. But I doubt anyone in the Irish rugby system would have told him that. But it's an interesting point. Like, do you think Leinster have it easier when it comes to player retention than the other provinces, Conor?
Player retention, like holding on to their players when they're out of contracts. No, I don't think. I think when you're part of a, and it goes for any sport, when you're part of a successful culture and a winning side, no one's going to want to leave. And more importantly than that, I think it gets forgotten when people talk about Leinster's squad depth is nearly all these players came through the system at Leinster. They came through Leinster schools and clubs and played their underage with rugby. They literally all dreamed of growing up playing with their provinces, and they're not going to want to leave.
That's an interesting point, because did they grow up playing for Leinster? So does that mean if they're now up in Ulster, are they more likely to leave because they didn't necessarily grow up playing for Ulster or Munster or whoever it is? It's an interesting one to think about at the risk of making the easy dig about Leinster supplying all the provinces. I'm not making that joke, but it's an interesting one to think
understood.
About. Does somebody like Jordy Murphy at the end of his contract look at and go, is it easier for him to leave Ulster than it would be to leave Leinster and go abroad and give up his Ireland career? It's an interesting one. I don't think there is an answer to that, to be honest, but it's one to think about.
Not a simple answer, but any of the Leinster guys that went up to rugby, like, always speaking glowing terms about the place anyway, and how well they looked after and how well they fit in, and they're usually at a different stage of their career then as well.
True.
The likes of Jordy and Cooney and even Nick Timoney and they often find themselves and they make a career for themselves up there. So
Nick Timoney's got a cap out of it, which is brilliant to see. Another interesting question while we're talking about back rowers, Owen has put up saying he'd like to see Levy back in there with Van der Flair and Doris on the weekend. Now, obviously, that's made possible by the injury to Jack Conan, which is actually a point in and of itself. Leinster have a back row backlog, but it's probably not going to be as big an issue as it could be, because there'll always be two lads injured. It's the nature of the position. But Dan Levy, I mean, that's a scary prospect if he gets to form and gets back in that back row as well, isn't it?
It is. How much do you think Dan Levy's injuries have compromised his play, though?
I have absolutely no idea. Compromising in the sense that he hasn't got a run of 10 games together. Yes. Yeah. In terms of his actual ability, I've no idea, because we just haven't seen him enough.
That's true. We never actually got a chance. He had a run of 8 or 9 games, I think, when he came back from his long-term injury. He got injured just before I think he was going to be unleashed in some of the bigger matches. So, like, I've heard his injuries described like as catastrophic and like being through a serious car accident. Basically every ligament and tendon.
Yeah. Shocking.
It's miraculous that he came back. So no, I hope we do. I hope we get to see him at top European level or back in green again.
I'd love to see him. I don't think we're going to see him in the next 2 weeks, though. I don't think they're dropping Rhys Ruddock. No. He's especially not away in Montpellier. He is the dog you want in that 6 jersey. So, and they're not dropping Josh. He's in the form of his life, and Doris is arguably the form 8 in World Rugby at the minute. So he's not going in. Well, 6 for Ireland, I guess. Right. So should we? That kind of wraps up the players we wanted to talk about. I think, what is it? Some Kilkenny and AIL next, isn't it, from Gerald? Is it?
Yeah, the great Gerald Williamson joins us, our regular historian. Good evening, Gerald. You're looking well.
Good evening, Conor. Nathan. Good to see you, boys.
You're looking very festive.
Yeah, I said I might as well start. It's December now, anyhow. Christmas is only a couple of weeks away, 2 weeks away. That's all.
Don't stop, would you? I need to get shopping.
Anyhow, I'm going to talk about Kilkenny Rugby Club. The earliest mention of rugby in the marble city of Kilkenny was around 1886, when a club was in existence, but very little is known. And it wasn't until 1889 a team from County Carlow Football Club came down on a train to play a rugby match against Kilkenny County and City Football Club, as it was known then, at Duke's Meadow. The grounds, actually, Duke's Meadow, was given by permission of the Marquess of Ormond. The match reports state that Kilkenny side won by a try to 0. From the early 1900s, the club played their home games at St. James's Park up till 1974, when the club moved to its present grounds at Foulkstown on the edge of the city on the Waterford Road. The club opened its own new clubhouse in 1974, and in 1976 the club opened its own clubhouse. More recently, the club has added a new dressing room and showers to its facilities. Among the many honours won by the club was the Leinster Junior Challenge Cup in 1920, which was the forerunner of the Provincial Towns Cup. The Leinster Junior Challenge Cup, which was established in 1888 and later became known as the Provincial Towns Cup in 1925. The club won the Provincial Towns Cup 5 times in 1955, 59, 86, 2001 and 2002. Other honours won by the club were the Leinster League in 2001 and 2002 season and 2002-2003 season. That year, Kilkenny lost out in the playoff for the AIL. They beat Westport of Connacht and losing narrowly to Ards of Ulster and Bruff of Munster. The club have also won the Leinster League, Division 1B twice, and they have won also Division 2A in 2013-2014. Other honours won were the J1 League South East 10 times and the Provincial Towns Seconds Cup 7 times. Kilkenny is actually, rugby club is a Lions origin club, where Willie Duggan came from, was born in Kilkenny and came from Kilkenny. He was a former international, toured with the British and Irish Lions in 1977 to New Zealand and played in all 4 test matches. He scored the tour's only try in the 19-7 defeat and in the 3rd test match played in Dunedin. The Lions lost the series by 3 test matches to 1. Playing at number 8, Willie left a lasting impression on the All Blacks, who paid tribute to their great rival Willie on his death in 2017. Another player not as well known to most of us was international Jack Notley, playing at number 10. He helped Kilkenny win the Provincial Towns Cup in 1959. Former Munster player Ian Dowling played minis and underage rugby at Kilkenny, later with Shannon and Munster, with whom he won 2 European Cup medals in 2006 and 2008. Another former Irish international and Munster player, Mick Galway, played for Kilkenny in season 2004 before he finally retired. And they actually won the Leinster League that year, Division 1A League. Kilkenny actually hosts a very successful sevens competition known as the Marble City Sevens and attract teams from both home and abroad. At present, Kilkenny play in the Leinster Division 1A League and are lying in 4th position behind Sea Point, Monkstown and Bector Rangers, who are all former AIL clubs. So that's my brief synopsis on Kilkenny I've covered for you. Is there any other questions?
It's fascinating, you know. It's quite a successful club down there in the city. Obviously dominated by by hurling.
Of course, very true, very true. But it has grown an awful lot because there's a lot of new women's rugby now has become very popular. Girls rugby, and of course the youth rugby. Girls rugby in particular has grown an awful lot in a lot of clubs around the country, and Kilkenny, not only just in Kilkenny, but a lot of other clubs around.
Nigel there with the comments that Ger's like the encyclopedia of Irish rugby. He's not far off. So why don't you
to Dave Attenborough?
Where was he?
Or he looks like Father Christmas of Irish rugby, of Leinster rugby tonight. That's for sure. With the beard and the hat.
Oh yes.
Why don't you use your encyclopedic knowledge, Gerald, to wrap? Have you got a bit of an AIL update?
AIL stuff, yeah. Leinster clubs are doing quite well, actually. I mean, I just go through the Leinster clubs and where they are lying at the moment. In Division 1A, for instance, Clontarf are actually at the top. All the clubs actually now played so far 8 matches. And we're more or less at the halfway stage. Saturday, this coming weekend, now will be 9th round of games. That'll be at the halfway point. But at the moment now, Clontarf are leading Division 1A on 33 points, followed by Lansdowne on second place. And then Terry-Muir and Dublin University are in 5th and 7th place. And in 1B, Old Wesley are in 2nd place, followed by Mary's in 3rd place, and Nason 5th place, and Old Belvedere are in 7th place. So they're all up there, very handy. And actually, there's only one club now in Division 2A, Leinster club, and actually that's Barnhole, and they are lying in 5th place on 20 points. Then Division 2B, you have Greystones, who are actually unbeaten after 8 games, and they are on 39 points in 1st place. Wanderers are the next Leinster club, and they are in 4th place on 24 points, followed by Blackrock in 5th place on 24 points also. Gold points difference is slightly there. Then on 2C, you have Skerries, and interestingly enough, Skerries are also unbeaten. They haven't lost a game, and they are in 1st place on 37 points. And in 2nd place in 2C is actually Enniscorthy, and they are 35 points. And they only lost 1 game, and that game, the loss actually was against Skerries. And in 4th place actually is Tullamore. So that's basically all the Division 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 2C covered, and so far where they are lying.
And it's good to see the interest in the AIL getting higher and higher as we go. And who knows, we were talking earlier about maybe the new format of the URC means we might get more provincial players playing, and fingers crossed that happens, because that'll just make it even more popular. If I know some lads, I know Peter Dooley's been playing a bit, but I haven't heard of many other Leinster players playing. So fingers crossed, the clubs get some love and the AIL keep going from strength to strength. And we should say as well, I think Railway are top of the women's as well, aren't they? With joint with
that's correct. That's correct. Yeah, Railway are in 1st place, followed by Blackrock are in 3rd place, Old Belvedere in 4th place, and Sutonians in 5th place.
Looks like a bit of a shootout.
Maybe
we'll
cover women's in a bit more detail next month.
We will. So I think. Yeah. So Gerald, thank you for telling us all about Kilkenny and the AIL, and like Conor said, hopefully the women's playoffs actually I think would have started by the time we do our next show. So we'll get some competitive women's AIL action talking about next time. Good to see you, Gerald.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
Gerald.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Fascinating, isn't it?
It's great having Gerald on. You always learn something. Willie Duggan, who was a real maverick down there in the 70s. Coming out of a non-traditional pathway, to Lions test player. So looking forward to
what that means. But not sure what that probably was. Thought I was wearing enough clothes. Clearly not. Right. So, well, at least you've got your Leinster
blue.
blue. Mine's in the wash. I didn't time the wearing of the blue right this week.
You're not
sadly.
a student anymore, Nathan. No.
Very true. Well, maybe now that I'm not a student, I can afford a new jersey, one that fits me as well.
Yeah.
Time for the next Gerry, is it?
Yeah. Next Gerry, Gerry Sweeney. He was with us before. Great guy. Gerry was doing works with. Where are you, Gerry? How are you? You're very welcome to the show.
Very good evening, gentlemen. How are we? And good evening to all your listeners. Thanks for having me back in.
Thank you for joining us, Gerry. You spoke to us before on the show about your work with the Blue Dragons and the Inclusive Rugby team. How's everything down there now with your crew? Back playing?
Yeah, we're still going despite the ever never-ending COVID situation. So we're still getting it every Sunday. Numbers are still really, really good. Yeah, it's been really, really good. We haven't missed many sessions because of the weather either, which has been great. So we've got a couple of new coaches on board as well. So the coach to player ratio is really, really good right now as well. So things are going really, really well. It's been really well supported by everybody. It's going well. We're very happy with it so far anyway. So and long may it continue with this Omicron on the horizon. So which I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, well, hopefully, yeah.
We made it halfway through the show before the O word came up.
Well, I had to say it and break the ice, didn't I? So there you go. Saves you guys saying it.
So tell us about. I believe there's a lot more clubs taking on board inclusive rugby now. So have you more opponents to play, or how is it? How do you have a busy match schedule?
Yeah, I think that's something that we're going to look at in the new year, just with the situation right now, especially with the players that we would have would be very, very vulnerable in terms of COVID, particular respiratory infections, things like that. So we kind of made a decision as a group, as a collective, to kind of leave that perhaps until the new year, maybe into the spring. But no, you're right. Disability and inclusive tag rugby and mixed ability rugby is really exploding now in Ireland. I mean, in Leinster alone, we've got 20 clubs who now have a disability inclusive tag rugby offering, which is huge. And there's 38 clubs in the union, which is huge. And I think the IRFU have a new disability and inclusion officer now as well, a guy called David McKay. I haven't had a chance to meet him yet, but he's been really, really active in trying to drive it as well. So, and the latest club to have a disability offering is Clondalkin RFC. They are club number 38 now. And number 20 in Leinster to have a disability tag rugby group as well, which is really, really great to see. And, you know, I was on before, I spoke a lot about how important it is for players, no matter who you are, to be able to play a sport with your peers. That's a huge, huge thing for me. And I think rugby really, really leads into that. I think it's a great game for it, and especially tag rugby. I know now as well some of the clubs have mixed ability offerings too. I mean, it was very, very recently the International Day of People with Disabilities. And there was a nice piece in the Independent about Sunday as well. The Sunday's Wild Rebels, they have a mixed ability rugby team, you know, with a contact element as well, which is amazing to see. There's a great video montage done on Twitter. I don't know if anyone picked it up. Well worth a watch. Really, really, really heartening stuff to see those players, you know, standing side by side with people with, you know, who are pretty standard players as well, and helping everybody along. You know, it was really, really great to see. It makes you feel good about rugby and where we're at the minute, you know.
Absolutely, Gerry. Just a quick one. Could you explain just for people watching, because I think the two terms are often used interchangeably when they're two different games. Could you explain the difference between inclusive rugby and mixed ability rugby?
So predominantly, a lot of the clubs that offer tag rugby, so to be disability tag rugby. So there's no contact whatsoever. You're pulling tags, much like you play social tag rugby on a Friday night. The rules are the same, the skills are the same. With the mixed ability, there's a contact element, and we don't have a mixed ability set up in Navan, but from the bits and pieces that I've seen of it, the players who aren't engaging in contact are identified with a different colour bib. So players who are able-bodied or who are more progressive know not to tackle those persons. That seems to be the difference between the two. And I think more or less the laws are pretty much the same as a normal 15-a-side game. So It'd be something interesting to get going on Navan sometime if we got the coaches to do it. A little bit more manpower involved in something like that,
Yeah.
and a few more bodies as well. So, although some of our Dragons now would love contact rugby, they're mad for it. So, it can be hard to keep them apart at times, you know.
I suppose it's all about finding the space for everyone, isn't it? Really, having the tag there for people that don't want contact, and having an element to contact there for people to want to embrace that side of the sport.
Yeah, I think it is, and you know, the way we plan our sessions, we try and have as much variety in them as you possibly can without actually having collisions, if you want to call it that. You know, the skill set is the same, you know, for everybody, you know, in terms of defensive line, attacking line, things like that. You know, the ball has to go back. You got to keep everything moving forward. So all those skills translate across the board. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes and if more clubs take on a mixed ability element. So.
One thing I kind of flagged up there when you spoke there, Gerry, about maybe being concerned about maybe some vulnerable participants. Have you seen maybe that some people might be staying away still because they're concerned about mixing in rugby playing groups? Is that a concern for clubs like yours at the minute?
From the inclusive perspective, or from
maybe
just in
that
general?
people might be staying away. Have you noticed that at all?
Yeah, well, you know what? I think most of our players will always have some form of a sniffle anyway. Same with some of the coaches, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So they'll be in and out, and you know the guidelines are from us, from our club COVID officer. If you're displaying any symptoms at all, maybe give the session a miss for that week, and then come back next week. But thankfully, we're still getting good numbers to train, and we're getting 14, 15 players on average a session. So it hasn't been holding too many people away, you know. So they still want to come, and you know, it's all outdoor as well. So from the COVID side of things, it's fairly safe. I mean, all the coaches are vaccinated as well. I mean, we wear masks. The kids don't have to wear masks, but we do. And the adults, if they're watching, if they're congregated in the stand, they'll wear their masks as well. So you know, you try and make it as safe as you possibly can. We sanitize everything, sanitize the equipment, sanitize hands. We do absolutely everything we can to keep everybody safe. But I think it's a good question, though, and I think a lot of sports you'll probably find that there's been people who've kind of stepped back from that kind of group scenario, because of the way things are going. You know, it's the sad side of it, and you know, you kind of want kids to be out there playing their sports and having crack with their friends, and you know, enjoying things. But COVID, unfortunately, puts a little bit of a second thought in some of that as well for an unfortunate few people. So
yeah, of course. Well, like I said, fingers crossed the numbers stay good and they only go up. I noticed a few people have been commenting links to the Leinster Rugby website where you can see in the Leinster Branch where there are inclusive clubs near people. So obviously Gerry's up in Navan, but we were talking about, you know, various other clubs that may have taken it up soon. So please do give that a click and find out which club is nearest to you if you want to get involved, or if somebody you know wants to get involved.
Absolutely, there's plenty of information there.
Fantastic. Well, Gerry, as always, pleasure, and always a pleasure to hear about the fantastic work that you're doing and everyone else who's involved is doing. It's a testament to you and testament to everyone involved, the players and coaches and parents, etc. So no, thank you as always for sharing your story.
Absolutely. Thanks a million for having me, gentlemen, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Yeah, very soon.
Sure will.
All right.
As Gerry Sweeney, we should thanks again. Just, you know, always fantastic just to hear about that.
Yeah.
Just like to welcome along anyone who's tuned in. We should mention we have got a competition for 2 tickets for the Bath game this weekend. To win, what you need to do is you need to like the ThreeBOD Rugby Group page on Facebook. Type L and F for like and follow into the comment section here, plus the answer to a question. And the question is, in Leinster's 4 finals where they've won a European Cup, how many points did they score in total across those 4 finals? And Joe Shep has, well, I won't say whether he's giving away the answer or not.
The answer may or may not be 97.
Joe is having fun. We'll put it that way. Yeah. And also, like we said, there's at various stages in the comment section, there's the link to Ivan Phillips' just giving page after his terrible accident, and we wish him the best. Time for our big guest, is it?
It is indeed. Leinster have a couple of big matches coming up in the European Champions Cup, probably no more so than the trip to Montpellier away in a couple of weeks. Montpellier have been one of the standout teams in the top 14 this season. They're third in the league. They've won. They've either won or picked up a losing bonus point in all their matches, and they've shown some great play, especially behind the scrum. Behind the major improvement to the side this season is a man called Bruce Rihanna, who is a former All Black, and he's the skills coach with the French club team. Our director producer, Joe Shepherd, was lucky enough to catch up with Bruce today and had a great chat with him. And we're now going to show you that interview, and we'll see what Bruce has to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And this little 10-minute or so interlude into tonight's show, the Leinster Laighn. Joining me tonight is a guy who's a world-class utility back in all the positions he's ever played. He's played in the English Premiership, in the New Zealand provincial side leagues. He's played in Super Rugby. He's played in the French top 14. He's been a coach at Bristol Bears, at Clifton Rugby. He's now moved on, and he is the skills coach at Montpellier Herault, who are in Leinster's European group coming up. He's a Maori All Black. He is New Zealand All Black number 997. He's got 2 bloody gold medals to his name as well. And he hasn't aged in the 4 or 5 years that I've known him. Please welcome to the show the great Bruce Rihanna. Bruce, how are you?
Good, thanks, mate. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm awesome, mate. Great to have you back on after so long, and congrats on the new gig. So, tell us very, very quickly, what's it been like going to work with Philippe Saint-André and Montpellier under Mr. Alfred?
Well, I knew Philippe from back in England when I played back at Northampton. He was there at Gloucester and also at Sale, and also Olivier Zan. He played 10 years at Gloucester as well. He's our head coach, so I knew them really well. And once they got a hold of me, I just seemed to suit the role that they wanted to fit. And been over, started a season in July, and geez, the first thing I noticed was the weather over there is absolutely amazing. So that's, for one, that's been awesome. But the culture over there is great. They've got a great team. The guys are willing to learn and just get stuck in, and they're believing in what we're coaching. So we can't really ask for more. We've had a great start to the season. Could have been better, but there's always coulda, wouldas. My role in the team is skills and kicking coach, but I also work with the backs on semi-attack and other roles. So it's just been a great experience so far, and looking forward to the Heineken Cup.
Are you still doing the fitness sessions with the lads like you used to? Yep. That was one of the great things that you do whatever you asked the lads to do when you were at Bristol. So
yeah, definitely. Whenever I take the skills, if there's an odd number, I always get stuck in with the boys and try and keep up with them. So that's another challenge for me as well. And they enjoy that side of it, because if they see me doing it with them, they've got no excuses not to. So
absolutely,
it keeps me fit as well.
Do you speak French, or is it a bit of franglais?
A bit of franglais, mate. Bit of franglais. I do speak a bit of French. I should do that, even though knowing I'm half French. But funny enough, when I was young, I didn't really speak it. I didn't get the chance to learn it. But it's there or thereabouts. I've got a lot of work to do to get a lot better, and then things will be a lot easier.
Super. Where do you feel that? You have done really, really well. So I stuck up the poster before, third in the French top 14, won 7, drew 1, lost 4. And those 4 losses, as we were talking off air before, have been so close. We're talking sort of 0.2 points either way. Where do you think that Montpellier's rise has come from? What are your strengths and weaknesses there, apart from clearly the coaching staff?
Well, the biggest thing we're trying to work on is obviously confidence in what we're doing and where we're trying to project the team to, and that comes with every week, trying to earn that trust between players and coaches, and understanding that we're trying to do our best to reach our objectives, and then the players have to do their best to buy in and listen and work hard on the small details of the game and the game plan that we're trying to project every week, and so far things are going really well. The guys are really buying in, they're really working really hard, and they're setting their objectives. So that's the key, and they've got to push hard to achieve them. So when the players are are accountable, it makes our jobs a lot easier because then they push and work a lot harder to achieve them.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, buddy. You talked about the culture. We had a certain interviewed a short while ago now, a certain fly half for Racing, who said that Finn really enjoyed going out there and playing rugby because he was just allowed to throw the ball around and enjoy it. Whereas I think a lot of elite teams now, with no disrespect to them, the coaches can stifle players. We certainly see this, stifling the enthusiasm and exuberance of the youngsters. Is that a culture that you have in Montpellier as well, where you go out and enjoy it, lads, and play for each other?
Yeah, definitely. We've definitely got a structure, but around that structure, if you see opportunities, then you play what you see. But we're trying to play both sides of the game, an attacking game, also a defensive game. But it's just trying to get that balance between both sides of the ball, but we encourage the players to play. But with around that, where we get into trouble, obviously we've got to know how to get out of it. So, but it's I think we've got a great style of the way to play the game, and the players are really buying into it and really enjoying. Looks like they're really enjoying what they're doing, which is the key.
Yeah, like I said before, the couple of times I've watched play this season, it's been really good. And of course, we're coming into Europe now, and you've just had 3 wins on the bounce, which really makes a big difference to your position in the league and to the mindset of the players going into it. So you've got Exeter away,
yep,
which will be hard trip on the road, and then you've got us at home the following Friday. Very briefly on Exeter, what are you looking for from the lads going away? Some French teams look more to take all of the points at home, and they're not always as,
yes,
you know what I'm saying, they're not always as bothered, if you like, but Europe, it's a finite number of games. So Montpellier, what are you looking for going on the road to Exeter, very briefly?
Yeah, well, obviously now we're back in the H Cup. We want to try and put our step on the competition. It's going to be a bit harder this weekend, as we've had to, through the regulations and rules, we've had to give our internationals a week's break. So a lot of our players aren't going to be there. However, our squad has been strong. So a lot of players that have been itching to get out there and express themselves. So there's going to be a few changes this week, and we've trained really well so far. So these guys have got a lot of edge about them, and we've been working hard with them to really get all our squad up to speed and make us really compatible. So internally we're really pushing each other to step up, in everyone's position. Because if you don't, then I'll take it. So we're trying to create that healthy competition for everyone. So this is their chance for the boys to step up and have a go. And
then, of course, we come 2 weeks' time to the Friday when all of your internationals are back. You've got 4 times European champions coming. What does what's the mindset when you're playing a team like Leinster? Nothing against Exeter or anybody else, but I think it comes with an expectation of a style of play that we're going to bring. What does it do in the tactical and the mental mindset for MHR?
Well, the biggest thing for us is that when you come up a team like Leinster, you've got to do the basics really, really well. And fundamentally and physically, you've got to be on your game. Otherwise, you're going to get your pants pulled down. So we know that first and foremost. The biggest thing was we'll come up with a plan that we think that can really counteract what Leinster do to us, and obviously vice versa. I think down on the day, it all comes down to the basics done well, and when you get opportunities, taking them, because in these big games like this, you don't get many, and if you don't take them, you're going to be on the losing end, on the losing side of things. So, we're really looking forward to that challenge. Can't wait. I mean, they've got an outstanding team, and Leinster's been a force for many, many years. So we look forward to the challenge ahead, and hopefully we can do those basics really well, mate, and be competitive.
Where do you think a game against Leinster and the style that we play would be won and lost? Is it more you go on offensive and you don't worry about our defense so much, i.e. the whole score more points than you type thing, and we'll be happy as long as we get a bonus point?
Well, I just think you got to try and play both sides really well. Defensively, we've got to be sharp and on the ball, because Leinster move the ball around really well. And on defense, they've got great defense. They work well as a line. They're very physical. and if, like any team, if you don't win that physical battle when you're getting slow ball, you're on the back foot, it's tough to play anything. So, it all comes down to on both sides of the ball. Yes, we want to attack as well, but also we've got to try and pick some territory and try and force Leinster to make mistakes so we can play inside their half, and ideally they get penalties or turnovers and create points off that. But it's small margins which make the biggest differences in the big games.
Absolutely. How do you counter, as a skills coach, how do you counter in these big games set play? I mean, what's the mindset tactically behind how you counter that? Because a lot of our stuff can come off really good set play.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think with the biggest thing, we just got to stay connected, and everyone knows their role individually before collectively you work well as a team. And that's the key. Individually, everyone has a role, and if you execute that well, then the team functions. So that's we need to be really, really sharp on that, making sure everyone knows their role and we connect well, because once you create a crack, Leinster will see it and they'll just flow through, and then you're on the back foot, and after that it's very, very hard to control the machine. So it's hard. I think no matter what plan you have, it all comes down to the mindset on the day of how you front up and collectively deliver amongst the team, and it's not always going to go your way, but that's just the way it lives. It's about how the next job focus, how you can.
Just take us through very briefly, mate. What's it like in preparation week at a club like Montpellier? So leading up to, is it different when you're going away on the road so much as opposed to the week after when you're playing us at home? What's it like within the club from that week?
We try to keep everything the same. So whether we're at home or away, our mentality is to go out there and win. And if anything, we either way we take away points. So we try not to change much. So our mentality stays the same away or at home. It used to be in the past, it was all focused on home, and away we'll mix up the squad and just have a go and see what happens. But nowadays you can't, because the log is so tight and the teams are so strong now. You've got to be able to win at home and away if you want to compete with the top four, top six in the table. So we're trying to keep that strong mentality of no matter where we are, the focus remains the same, and we're going out there to win.
Superb. Mate, listen, we know that you've continuing with your excellent concept of developing the next generation of kids. Just tell us briefly about Laighin Rugby.
Yeah, I started doing that before I came to Montpellier. I had a year coaching our younger generation between the years of 8 and 17. And the biggest thing for me was developing their skill sets and their confidence, because I found a lot of the younger generation were struggling to play just simply because they couldn't move properly. And then obviously after that, the skills on top of that was even more difficult. So I started doing a lot of work on their agility and their footwork, so they were more balanced of when they were being able to run and move. And then I'd add the ball skills in amongst the agilities drills and skills I did. And then I'll take them into a game situation. And what they found was that their movement was so much better, and they would get into better positions, that when they would go to catch the ball, they were more confident because they were balanced. And then add the passing skills on top of that, they were able to shift the ball around really well. And then was just coaching them to realise, trying to move the ball around is one thing, but once you don't follow the ball like a herd of sheep. It's all about holding your space, holding your feet, looking for advantages and spotting gaps, and then communication. The small details. I mean, comms and speed to shape was huge, and managed to develop a lot of that with the younger kids in Bristol. And it was really great to see them progress, and it was really rewarding seeing that younger generation, seeing the spark in them of how they can move better with their feet and then their hands, and then it all started coming together. It was amazing. And we're still running our Laighin camps now, obviously through the winter, and that we've put a hold on it just because COVID, we're not too sure where that's at. Our next camps we'll be looking to do, and I'm pretty sure I'll have a break there. I'll come back to Bristol and run one myself. Will be in April, in the Easter break. But again, it's the key is with our young ones. I really want to make it upbeat and fun, because they need to enjoy what they're doing. That's first and foremost. And then it's just trying to give them confidence and showing them the pros and cons, and then getting them to understand too what's right and what's wrong, so they can end up coaching themselves. And then through the end of it, the kids had a great understanding of why I was doing it and what it was for. And then that once they understood it themselves, they really understood good from bad, and they could correct themselves, which was great. So at the end, they're almost coaching themselves, which is once you know what's going on, it makes things a lot easier. So it was really rewarding.
Well, everybody, listen, go to RayhonoRugby.com and have a look at what Bruce is doing there. That's absolutely fantastic. Listen, buddy, appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man out there in France getting ready for this weekend. Give us a quick prediction about how you're going to do in Exeter, and more importantly for our viewers tonight, how you're going to do at Leinster. So Exeter on the road first.
Exeter on the road. Well, we're definitely going up there to cause an upset, mate. So the mindset is right. The training week's been well, and now we're just gotta do the business. And then the following week against Leinster, obviously we want to be competitive at home. And again, our focus is always to win. We know it's going to be a huge challenge, but we're more than up for it.
Good. Give us a result then. Give us a points result.
Exeter, I think it's going to be a very tight game. Yep. I'd like to see us take it 21-18.
Cool.
Leinster, again, it's going to be a very, very, very tough battle. If both teams defend the way they can, and obviously I think things will be pretty tough. I think that's going to be a close game again, so maybe 19-15.
Interesting. There we go. Listen, Bruce Rayhono, currently skills coach with Montpellier Rugby, who we faced in 2 weeks' time. Listen, buddy, thanks very much. Great to see you back in professional rugby again, and look forward to chatting with you very, very soon. Stay safe.
Cheers, mate. Likewise. Take care.
Listen, this has been Big Joe Shep for the Leinster Laighn tonight, chatting with the great Bruce Rayhono, and back to the guys in the
Interesting. Big Joe Shep delving deep into the contacts book there. I appreciate all his work as always. Interesting. He said 1915. He didn't say to who though. He was very on the winner.
No, my big takeaway from that interview was how good does that lad look for 45?
45.
Yeah.
Jesus.
He's 45. He's in some shape.
He's some nick.
God.
Interesting one. He said they can't pick their French players for the Exeter game. So they already have a stinker of a draw with Exeter and Leinster, and now they can't pick their French players. It'd be really interesting to see, because with the French and English teams, if they lose their first game, they've then got to make a decision with this shorter format. Do they stay in it, or do they start prioritizing the league immediately? And if they lose away to Exeter the week after Leinster, they're away in Biarritz, and Biarritz are bottom of the league, but it's France. Not a lot of teams win away from home in France, so it'll be interesting to see if they lose against Exeter what's going to see. Because I just looked at their team sheet here from their last game. They're going to miss Mohamed Awas, Paul Williamson, and then Anthony Boutier and Vincent Rattez in the backfield. But that being said, the last game they started Garbisi at 10 with Pollard on the bench. They had Cobus Reinach at 9, Jan Serfontein at 12. So they're not lacking options in the non-French department.
They're not lacking options. They've a big South African influence there in the club. They've the likes of Reinach there as well, and they have Takuwaka on the wing, big Fijian winger. I think they've plenty of talent there, and they've enough to trouble us. And I don't think they'll be thrown. Not at home, Nathan. They even 16 teams qualify out of the group stages. So even if they come away with nothing from Exeter, they won't be out of it. So I just and their players back. I think they'll go full strength against us. We'll see. I think they'll go full strength against us and back themselves to beat Biarritz the following week.
Do you think they will beat us?
It's definitely the toughest match of the qualifying campaign for Leinster, without doubt, away to Montpellier. Sexton should be back.
Good point.
which is huge. If he's not back, not quite so confident, and we nearly have a full strength pack, won't we? Almost the pack to bet the All Blacks, and Henshaw, Ringrose, yeah, like.
We could do with having Brian back in that pack, because I think without him we're a little bit underpowered in the row, especially if they've got someone like Paul Williamson in there.
Paul Williamson, yeah.
We could do some power in the row. But so quick word. But I mean, we should also mention that there is the Bath game. I mean, we haven't forgotten that. That's the next one. But I mean, Bath are 0 from 9. I mean, Nigel made a good point there. 0 from 9 in the Prem so far. Anthony Watson's done his cruise shit, so he's gone for the year. Reece Priestland has left. Falatau is on his way out. He's still there, I think, but he's due to leave at the end of the season. So there's just not a lot going right at that club. So you'd think Leinster will go full guns, blazing team-wise at the Aviva 5-pointer, hopefully.
5 points, yeah. Yeah, it's 5 points by the 50th minute.
Yeah, and potentially 50 points.
Yeah.
Right,
wrap it up. Get the front row off, and start looking ahead to the following week.
Right. Well, we've got everyone back in now, and Nigel will make a prediction: 5-pointer and a heavy defeat for Bath. Oh, fingers crossed. We've seen Leinster upset by English teams at the Aviva before, so hopefully that doesn't happen. We got the two Gerrys back, so we'll finish up with get everyone's predictions for the two games. Gerry Sweeney, what's going to happen over these two European games?
I don't see any other way but a Leinster win against Bath on Saturday in the Aviva. I think we'll just be too strong for them. Heading over to France, though, that's a different prospect. And I think Leinster have always kind of struggled a wee bit in France. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be a little bit more coy there. But I reckon they'll probably do it. They've got the firepower up front. And as you said earlier on in the set, talking about Leinster's type 5 right now, they're like Vikings, the way they maraud around the park. And they're probably the fittest Vikings that ever existed. It's extraordinary how well they move. And it just shows the dynamicism these days of type 5, It's extraordinary. But that's my predictions anyway.
Gerald, anything different?
I would go for the Leinster against Bath. Definitely, Leinster should get that. Against Montpellier, I would be inclined to go actually for Leinster, because I think the French side would be their minds would be more concentrated on their own domestic league. And I would say they want to stay competitive in that. And I think actually Leinster are going to win it down in France. 5 points.
Oh, with the bonus point as well?
By 5 points.
What about you, Conor?
5 points sounds pretty close. Yeah, I was thinking 5 to 7 points. We're assuming Johnny is back. What I'd love to see is go over there. Start Harry Byrne. If Johnny doesn't make it, start Harry Byrne, and it could be the makings of him.
I suspect we'll go Harry this week and then Ross the week after if there's no Johnny.
Yeah. That would be my prediction as well. That's if Johnny doesn't make it, but hopefully he will make it. I expect us to beat that this week by about 30 points. Bonus point wrapped up pretty early, 50-55 minutes hopefully, and get some of the lads off. And then down to Montpellier, and hopefully we'll do the business there. It won't be easy though. It will not be easy. Never is down the south of France.
No. Brandon Smith makes a really good point there. He talks about Pollard at 10 for Montpellier, of course, the future Leicester Tiger, Andre Pollard, and I think that's something that's worth mentioning. He's one of the best goal kickers. So if Leinster have an ill-disciplined display like they did against Ulster, he doesn't miss any. So all of a sudden you're 12-0 down, and you don't know what's happened. So that's the one to flag up there. But I think if Leinster go in with good discipline, and it's a very similar pack to the one that beat Montpellier away last year comfortably, but arguably better and in better form as well. So you'd have to say on form, if they perform as they have been, you'd like to think they've got the platform for Robbie and Gary to do some damage. So fingers crossed. I think there
But
will
for
be
sure,
2 wins.
for sure, we won't be beating them up front though. You know, not running
No,
over them.
parity, I think.
Yeah.
Mm.
It should
Anyway,
be a good
so I think
match.
we should probably mention the competition again for that Bath game. If you haven't already, like the ThreeBOD Rugby Group page, comment L and F for like and follow, plus your answer to how many points have Leinster scored in winning Heineken Cup finals. We'll announce the winner probably about midday tomorrow. 2 tickets for the Bath game. Cheers to everyone. Good to see you all. If we're probably not going to catch up before Christmas, so everyone have a good Christmas, and then of course all the best to Ivan Phillips over in Ospreys. Thanks, Joe.
Always
So that's the
recruiting.
inspiration for the Ronnie,
Yeah. Pleasure as always, guys. Thank you, Gerald, for your
Thanks a million.
contribution in Kilkenny and the DIL, and thank you, Gerry,
Pleasure.
for talking the Blue Dragons down in Navan, and thank you, Nathan, as always. It's been a pleasure, and don't forget, guys, enter the competition, like and follow the ThreeBOD group, and we've 2 tickets to give away for Saturday. Okay, we'll see you all next month. Thank you as
In the
always.
new year.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Don't
Happy
forget, we
Christmas
do
and
have
New
our
Year.
Christmas party.
Take care. Thanks a million.
2nd December.
Bye-bye.
Christmas party.
Thank you.